Welcome to the ALEKS Student Experience Review. My name is Andrea Hendricks from Georgia State University, Perimeter College. We have used ALEKS for almost 5 years at my institution in a variety of implementations. While you work through this review, you'll be exposed to both the student side and instructor side of ALEKS, so that you can envision what it would be like if you were to use ALEKS with your students in either a face-to-face environment or another format. I will be your instructor, and I look forward to you being my students. I first wanted to share how I talk about ALEKS with every new group of students to set expectations and help them understand how ALEKS works. ALEKS stands for Assessment and Learning in Knowledge Spaces. It is very different from traditional online homework platforms in that ALEKS creates a personalized experience to help students succeed. ALEKS is designed to measure prerequisite knowledge and to ensure that you have the necessary foundational knowledge to be successful in mastering new material. Math topics build on top of each other, and we want to ensure our students have a strong foundation without those gaps that they often come in with, so that they can be prepared to succeed in not only this course but in future courses. Students are all at different places, yet ALEKS helps them all reach common goals. ALEKS enables us to know our students better and to further guide them to success. ALEKS is very flexible and can be implemented in a variety of course formats. But we wanted to highlight how ALEKS can be used in a traditional face-to-face format, as many of you teach in this format frequently. So in our mock face-to-face class, let's assume that we meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays for lecture. On Tuesdays, I will introduce new concepts and present a lecture. Then before the next class, students will work through ALEKS topics that have been assigned. Based on the class's results, I will use a variety of reports to help guide our lecture and class time on Thursdays. To help illustrate, I am going to share a few videos throughout our 2 weeks that will help you see what I see as an instructor and how your work will guide me. I will work to share how I connect ALEKS work into the classroom. But first things first. To help ALEKS get to know you, students work through an adaptive diagnostic assessment called the Initial Knowledge Check. This is completed after a tools tutorial and brief ALEKS walkthrough. The purpose of the Initial Knowledge Check is to give students credit for any course content they already know. This credit is different for each student because each student has a unique math background. Their math classes they've taken, time since their last math class, grades earned in those courses, and so on. There is no right or wrong grade on the Initial Knowledge Check, and I guide students that it's important to be honest with their answers. Some students come in knowing about 10% of the course content, some more. Comprehending more or less than 10% of the content is perfectly acceptable. Students are in our course to learn the material, not to show us that they already know it. It is certainly okay to click on "I don't know." The result of the knowledge check is not a typical test grade, but rather a measure of what you know and don't know. The initial knowledge check will be around 30 questions and takes roughly an hour, depending on the course content. As you answer questions, ALEKS is adapting and narrowing in on what you know and what you don't know based on years and years of analyzing student results and their clear understanding of how topics are connected and built upon one another. In a typical class, I found that about 10% of the students come in knowing less than 10% of the material. The majority of my students come in knowing around 11 to 20%. Another significant number come in knowing 21 to 30%, and then the remaining portion the students know 31% or higher. If you find students come in knowing 70% or some really large amount of the content, that triggers an alert to you that maybe there is a placement issue with this particular student. Maybe they didn't prepare well, or they were not feeling well, whatever the case. But the great advantage for ALEKS is that you can identify those students on the very first day of the semester and intervene and perhaps get them in the appropriate course so that they can be where they will be most successful. The result of your initial knowledge check is an individualized learning path that will guide you through the content of this course. ALEKS determines what topics you are ready to learn, meaning you've met the prerequisite skills to be successful with the new topics. Now for this experience, we've made some smaller assignments for you to work through. As the instructor, I can control the pace and sequence for how students work through our course. I've set up our deadlines for Mondays and Wednesday nights so that we can work to accomplish a specific set of objectives by a certain date. In ALEKS, a group of topics is called an intermediate objective. And then as the instructor, I can lecture and help students where they need it the most. I can go deeper on some topics. We can work in groups and do other types of activities in the course. In my course setup, I set my deadlines to drive the pace and allow us to be working together, but still at individual paces. Then I build a homework grade to capture how students are meeting those deadlines. For instance, if a particular objective has 20 topics and a student has completed 18 of those topics by the deadline, their homework grade for that objective is a 90%. Over the term, students are working to fill in their pie, all within pace of our class meeting my deadlines along the way. For this particular course, I've set up objectives based on sections that correspond to the textbook. One thing about ALEKS is that as a student works through an objective, and if they finish the objective before the deadline, the next objective will open, permitting the student to go on. If an objective deadline comes about and a student has not completed all of the topics in that objective, the next objective still opens. However, ALEKS will still hold the student accountable for knowing any prerequisite content. If there were skills in a previous section that are necessary to perform a skill in a following section, then that student will still be required to complete that prerequisite skill. So, we would first like you to experience this initial knowledge check, and this is very important. Please work through this as an average student. Do not get everything correct. You can answer some correct, some wrong. Click I don't know for some. Think of what your typical students come into your course having an understanding of. We will be referencing your student data and reports, and if you treat your experience as a normal student, this experience will be a lot more valuable for you. Once you work through this initial knowledge check, you can continue to work in your ALEKS path to complete our first intermediate objective, or small assignment, and ALEKS will guide you to do so. I will be sharing another video with a class report on how I use that initial knowledge check to drive my instruction. Enjoy, and I look forward to working with you.